Brock Purdy will be one of the top 10 jerseys sold this year. Mark my words. And he is a superstar. That's where we're at right now.
I'm just looking at the list, and right now, hey, he's 1A, 1B. It's him or Dak for the MVP right now. And I know you might say, oh, that doesn't matter. Well, it does in this case. Because if you just look at the quarterbacks who've won MVP, more likely than not, you're probably going to end up being a Hall of Famer. Now, there's exceptions. There are. You've got your Rich Gannons, which was a very rare case of a guy late in his career being one of the best players in football. Excuse me. Cam Newton, right? He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league until his body fell apart, and then he wasn't. Not a Hall of Famer. Very good. Obviously was a Heisman winner.
He was on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and then the injuries have really, just ended his career. The punishment he took derailed his career. And if he had won that Super Bowl against Denver, maybe.
Maybe, exactly. But it's that, and then Lamar is still very young. He's very good. He could end up being a Hall of Famer. But that's like what I'm talking about. Other than that, you're talking about Rodgers, you're talking about Brady, you're talking about Peyton Manning, you're talking about all those guys that are going to be in the Hall of Fame. So he is on that trajectory. And so if you say this is too early to be talking Hall of Fame, actually, it's not if he ends up winning the MVP, which is pretty unbelievable. We're talking about a guy who was picked with the last pick in the NFL draft. Like, just take a step back and just think about that for a second. You've had the top draft pick in Alex Smith before. You've had a guy you've stumbled upon in the middle of the rounds in Colin Kaepernick before. Both have been very good. One got to a Super Bowl and was very close to winning it. Fade to Crabtree, we all know. You've had some bad quarterback play. You've had Blaine Gabbert. You've had Nick Mullins. You've had C.J. Beathard.
Even the Garcia story coming from the CFL was a great story.
Very fun story.
Yes.
But you knew where it was ending. Not with the Super Bowl at the end of the day, unfortunately. Right now, and maybe it is a product of whatever else is around him, some of it, but also you just have to give credit to Brock Purdy. Like, at the end of the day, you're not winning a Super Bowl with bad players.
Are we taking away, but just real quick, are we taking away Peyton Manning's last championship when he was with Denver and he was a shell of himself?
No.
And he was, the 7th best player on that offense?
Not even. It was. I'll take every single defensive player that was on that.
On the offense.
Flies. Oh, on the offense.
It was like C.J. Anderson, Demarius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders.
Was Eric Decker still on that team?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and Peyton is cerebrally one of the all-time greats.
Yes. He was shot putting the ball at the end of his career.
He had one great drive in that Super Bowl.
Osweiler took over during the season.
I know.
It was pretty incredible. But yeah,
we don't take that against. That's not a knock on Peyton.
No, we don't. And that's the thing. Like, but the difference is here, Joe, Peyton had success prior to that. So we give him the benefit of the doubt that he's gotten so close. Brock, and I think this is unfair to him. I'm going to say this, but this is a fact. Because Brock Purdy didn't have NFL success prior to Kyle Shanahan, he's going to be looked at differently around the league. You're seeing it. I know that's where BPA, and we'll get to you in a second, wants to go here. But you're seeing it around the league. And you saw Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, see, he did this with Jimmy. So, Brock might be a little bit better than Jimmy. But at the end of the day, he's just a product of Kyle Shanahan.
And anybody who's watched the 22 games is like, he's better than Jimmy.
Which isn't fair, but he's going to get, that's the label he's going to have. He's a Shanahan quarterback. Which, listen, I'd say that, and you alluded to it yesterday, and Evan Giddings is the one who said this. I think Brock has elevated Kyle Shanahan just as much as Kyle's elevated Brock Purdy. I got to go to him when he's on the line. Like, come on. He's up there with the Robins and San Franciscos. He's up there with the Jeans. It's Brian in Palo Alto. Joining the Morning Roads, Joe Spadoni.
What's up, BPA?
What's going on, man?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Great. Blessed by your presence.
Jeez, come on. All right. The last sort of critics holding out, right, that are dogmatic about Brock's trash, right? Like Steven Ruiz, like it's to the point now where like there needs to be there's got to be consequences for that, right? Like that guy needs to be called out and exposed. A guy that never played football, didn't even play in Pop Warner, cherry picking the most ridiculous stats. It's not like saying I think Brock's really good, but I don't think he's as great as everybody says. He's just trash. That's his angle, and I feel like it's ridiculous in the handicapping Brock because he has weapons. Like, my God, Joe had Jerry and John Taylor and Brent Jones and Roger Craig. Peyton Manning had Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison and Edgerrin. It's ridiculous. That's it now? Mm-hmm. Now we handicap him because he has good players around him? It's like it's the most like Joe had better players around him. I'll tell you that. Joe had more weapons in the late 80s with the 49ers, right? And Brock is putting up better numbers than Joe did. And so, and again, obviously he has to close and win a Super Bowl, but it's ridiculous. Like, I get Steven Ruiz on, right, guys?
I don't even want to.
Just get him on and say, get him on and say, let's talk about your quarterbacking expertise. Where did you play in high school and college, right? Let's walk through your quarterbacking experience and just have him answer, I didn't play in high school. I didn't play, like, yeah. It's just, my God. Like,
well,
I've never seen any of that.
He did say, Brian, real quick, he did say, I believe, Steven Ruiz, when he had this, if Brock Purdy ends up going to the Super Bowl or winning it, right, that he was going to quit. So you got to hold him to that, Brian. You better hold him to that. I know you're on Twitter.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Like, if I'm Bill Simmons, right, and a guy that's built his credibility over a long period of time, like, it's kind of embarrassing to put a guy like that on my payroll.
Kind of, but you're calling him. We're talking about him, so that's why Bill Simmons loves it. Thanks, BPA.
All right.
Like, that's at the end of the day. That's like they care about clicks over at the Ringer, just like everyone else. And Steven Ruiz, you know what? He's leaning into the shtick, and people are falling for it. I wouldn't like. That's exactly what it's turned into at this point. So if you're still following that, that's just pure hate at that point. Which if I'm a fan of the team, I'm not subscribing to it all. But you know what? And to BPA's point, I don't think you need to have played the sport to understand it. Like I played Pop Warner. I wasn't playing high school football. I'm allowed to have opinion on Brock Purdy just like you are, Joe Shasky. I don't think that's the end all be all. Hell, we got people that are in front offices around the league. Howie Roseman never played a lick of football. All these people can understand sports without having played them. But I understand his overall point. Guys like Steven Ruiz, guys like Nick Wright, guys constantly trying to bring him down because you know what? They want to be proven right. It's a yes and no business. It's a hot take industry. You have to be wrong. You have to be right. There can be no gray area, which is just, you know what? That's kind of a sign of the times, unfortunately.
But here's where this is where I get frustrated. We act like every Super Bowl champion doesn't have really good players on their team. Now, if you want to say the 20, like go back in history and look at all the champions, and you tell me if they have a Hall of Fame or elite level personnel on either side of the ball. Every one of them does. The only one that really sticks out to me, and I would say Alshon Jeffries was way better than people will remember, and Zach Ertz was awesome. The 2017 Eagles, if you look at that roster, they're probably not going to come away with otherworldly players.
But that offensive line has some Hall of Famers on it. Lane Johnson,
Fletcher Cox on the
Kelsey,
other side.
Also, Nelson Aguilar. I know we like to rag on him. There's the meme, the Aguilar meme, all that sort of stuff. He was pretty damn good in that Super Bowl, and he was a first-round pick.
No doubt. But let's just do the exercise quickly because I want to go to the lines here. We act like did the Chiefs last year? I don't know. Travis Kelce,
decent player.
I mean, come on. When it's all said and done, one of the top 5 tight ends.
And they stumbled upon this kid Pacheco out of Rutgers, like he's unbelievable.
And I would say he's their second best player on offense this year outside of Mahomes.
And now they're seeing kind of they listen. It worked for them last year. It ain't working for him this year, and now he's got temper tantrums on the sideline. Let's go to.
But no, real quick. Rams had Cooper Kupp. I'm sorry, I want to make sure. Cooper Kupp put up prolific numbers for 5 years.
Yeah,
broke Jerry Rice records for 5 years. They also had Odell, and Odell was awesome in that little run.
I felt so bad for him in that Super Bowl.
All right, brutal. Tampa Bay. We've talked about that team with Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, who's otherworldly.
He'll be a Hall of Famer, Mike Evans.
Godwin. And then, whatever. And Tom Brady.
And then Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette if you want. Yeah.
All right. I've referenced the 2017 Eagles, the New England Patriots, Gronk and Edelman, 2 of the greatest playoff performers ever. Ever. Denver Broncos. I talked about that team. C.J. Anderson, Demaryius Thomas. That team was good. Julius Thomas, the tight end, got a big contract.
All the defense. You got to keep Talib back there. You got Von Miller, right? So
Patriots. We referenced that team a million times. Seahawks. I don't know. Marshawn Lynch. A yard for your life. You're not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
If Marshawn gets that Super Bowl and he would have gotten the MVP, I think he'd be a Hall of Famer.
I think he is a Hall of Famer.
I think he's borderline. I think he's borderline, but I think he would have gotten in had they run the ball there.
All right. Baltimore Ravens, the year that they won it all. I know we've forgotten Ray Rice was really good.
No, he's very good.
I know we've forgotten Anquan Boldin was borderline Hall of Fame and destroyed the Niners in that one. Go to the New York Giants, Plaxico, and all the different players out there.
Mario Manningham. They have Victor
point that
Cruz.
I'm getting at, and we're now 12 years. Every Super Bowl champion has multiple elite Hall of Fame level players on that roster on the offensive side of the ball. Do we knock any of those quarterbacks that have won it for
Well,
him?
this goes back and
it drives me
and
crazy.
we'll get to the lines. Miguelito, Judy, and Travis. We see you all. We will get to you, I promise. But this goes back to the comp that I was trying to get to, and we're finally paying off the tees an hour later. All right? I'm glad you all hung on. This is what we do with Stephen Curry. Oh, it's easy to win when you have, a Hall of Famer in Klay Thompson, when you have a Hall of Famer in Draymond Green, when you have one of the greatest scorers and a top 10 player of all time in Kevin Durant. I mean, those rings actually don't really mean anything. Those 2 rings that you got with KD, they actually don't mean a thing. And we use this with KD as well as Steph, both of them. And more so with KD, people like to crush him because he came over. But they use the same thing for Stephen Curry. Yeah, that wasn't real basketball. You were living in fantasy land. The Cavaliers had no chance. So we raise up, the 2011 Mavericks because Dirk had, he only had Jason Terry and Tyson Chandler and Jason Kidd and all these other guys, Sean Marion and Peja Stojakovic.
I mean, a bunch of former All-Stars.
I know, right? And Jason Kidd, I know he was 40 years old. He was floor general. He's still unbelievable.
One of the great point guards of all time.
Turned into a pretty good 3-point shooter at the end of his career too. So that's what we like to do. We like to go back and say this team had all these players, so we really can't do this. It's dumb. It's absolutely stupid. Miguelito's an SF. He wants to hop on here on 95.7 Game.
I like that Steph comp.
Thank you.
Because he doesn't get the appropriate just do outside of the bag.
He doesn't. He gets absorbed. And,
I agree.
And really, it's not fair. What's going on, Miguelito?
Hey, Joes. Hey, I wasn't going to call until I heard Baldy call me an idiot. Just because I don't think that Brock Purdy is a superstar. If he was such a superstar, why was he the 300 pick? And why didn't nobody ever hear about him in college?
Well, did you know? Wait, 1 second. Yeah. Did you know who Cooper Kupp was in college?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not one of the big college football fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone did who even watched college football know who Cooper Kupp really was. John's raising his hand. He did. But Miguelito, like we're saying now, though, we're not going back to college.
Did anyone know that Aaron Donald was going to be a superstar? Hall of Famer?
But can you explain? All right, but can you explain to me why he's a superstar now?
Yeah, because he literally is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league who delivers the ball accurately down the field so that his playmakers can make plays. He kills zone. He identifies man pre-snap, throws it downfield to where only his guy can make a play. If their play breaks down and Shanahan's beautifully designed play does not work, he scrambles out left, points to Ayuk, telling him with his brain, hey, you need to keep going, throws it over the safety's head where only Ayuk can get it. I don't know. Did you see the first play of the game against the Niners and Seahawks on Sunday? He checked into a run because of where Jamal Adams was on that play.
Thanks, Miguelito. But yeah, like what are we doing here? This is the same conversation I was going with Tom Brady, for forever. You go back to Max Kellerman and Stephen A on First Take. Max Kellerman was trying to say Tom Brady's washed up 10 years ago. Trent Dilfer was trying to say he was washed up. The guy won 3 Super Bowls and we're still crushing him. Do you think if Brock wins one, we'll still be done with the Brock haters? No.
Coming out.
That's never going to happen.
Coming out of college, 2017. If you polled 100 football fans, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, before they played a snap in the NFL, how many people would recognize who Deshaun Watson was versus Patrick Mahomes?
Well, he was playing all the national championships, so obviously Deshaun Watson.
Exactly. Yeah. Who's had a better NFL career?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is already one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, so yes.
All right. Did anyone see that? Even after 1 year, there were people skeptical, a little bit skeptical on him, but I think we all bought in oh my God.
Well, it's so funny you say that, Joe. And all the quarterbacks, we pretend we watch all these quarterbacks, but you really don't. Other than the CJ Strouds or Bryce Youngs, the Alabamas or Ohio States or USC, if you're not watching the major brands, Joe Flacco, for example.
Delaware State.
No one watched a lick of Joe Flacco. It was this guy's a first-round quarterback.
I know.
Won a Super Bowl. Showed why. And actually, sneakily, Cleveland Browns got a little bit of action if you're watching how Joe Flacco's been playing with them. And that defense, if he can just get the ball to Amari Cooper and co, they got some action in the AFC. Phillip Rivers. Where'd he go? Coastal Carolina or
NC State?
NC State. Thank you. No one's watching a lick of Phillip Rivers. Guy's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Did it a high-low for not in the throwing motion wasn't very orthodox. It was very unorthodox, right? But it just goes to show you can find these guys from anywhere. In Ohio State and Iowa State, by the way, they were playing in some decently big games. That's a big conference they were playing in. And I actually did make the comp earlier, and maybe it wasn't fair of him not being able to play in the AFC North because of the elements. He did play in Iowa State. I looked past that. He played in the elements.
Good point.
Maybe it would be different than what he'd be playing right now in San Francisco, But just give the kid some credit. I think it's just, at the very least, that's what Niner fans, I think, are wondering.
Well, I would just say to people, like, what more do you need to see?
That's a great question. 888-957-9570. Johnny Boy, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, and to push back a little with Miguelito, and a lot of people that say, why was he drafted so late? And if he would have came out his junior year, and I'm a huge college football guy, watching him his junior year, he was a very, very good quarterback. He was looked at as a mid-second round pick. He decided to forego that and come back for his senior year because he was this big college guy.
And they lost Breece Hall that year?
They lost Breece Hall, and he took an injury in the second week of the season. So he really, shot himself in the foot coming back his senior year to be that Mr. Irrelevant. But if he would have came out his junior year, he would have been a top 5, top 6 quarterback in that draft.
It's a great point, too, because we're seeing that now with Will Levis.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Yeah.
He came back for his senior year.
Point.
Mel Kiper, even this year, and Mel Kiper, obviously, Todd, one of the biggest draft gurus. You can say what you want about his whole shtick and stuff like that. Guy knows all these players inside and out. He's wrong a lot. A lot of these guys are. He's never going to have a success rate. But he liked Will Levis more so than anyone in this draft. But because of the off-field stuff, all this sort of stuff, he fell. But the body of work was there his junior year, or whatever it was. I don't know if he was right. But the junior year, he was one of the best quarterbacks. He came back, didn't have the same offensive line. His whole offensive line was decimated, didn't have a chance. So when people looked at the film the senior year, like, oh, this guy's not the same guy. But now we're seeing it. He's playing for the Titans, looking pretty freaking decent out there, getting a huge win over the Miami Dolphins. Another guy, real quick, Chess, you want to jump in there?
No, it's just, I think like sports is very cut and dry. Can you play?
Facts. Mike
Piazza was like a 35th round pick. And it was, I believe Tommy Lasorda did a favor to a family friend drafting him. I don't know. Mike Piazza had as much talent as anybody I remember.
Decent player.
Yeah. Okay. Like we can go right down the list and go every single sport. There are people who are outliers. Nikola Jokic is dominating the NBA for the last 4 years.
Best player in the sport.
He was drafted in the middle of the second round, which is essentially the 7th round.
During a Taco Bell commercial. The cheesy roll-up. I love me a cheesy roll-up.
We have had a front row seat to Draymond Green's career where he was a 40th or 50th pick overall, and he has as much talent as anybody in the league and has stuck around as going straight to the Hall of Fame. Can you play or not? Bryce Young was taken number 1 overall.
Yeah.
I thought he was a superstar coming in.
We'll see.
I don't know if he could play. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And it's all about the circumstances in which they're selected.
George Kittle was taken in the 5th round. I didn't know who George Kittle was. Didn't even know who he was.
Yeah,
I watched him play for a year.
Iowa's not known for their offense. Why do we take a guy on offense from Iowa, right?
If I were to poll someone who didn't know the backstory of George Kittle, they'd be like, yeah, 1st round pick. Just by like the body and everything. He has as much God-given talent as anyone, right?
Yeah.
So we do this so we're blue in the face in sports. It happens all the time. Lincecum was like the 4th pitcher taken in the top 10 and he won the Golden Spikes Award, which is the equivalent of the college Heisman, and ended up being the best pitcher from that draft. Well, Kershaw on him. Yeah. But point being is like, can you play? That's it. Can you play or not? Purdy can play.
Let's go to Judy in Moraga. Let's see if she can play on the Morning Roast. What's going on, Judy?
Hey guys, I'm so happy that I could jump in on this conversation because I listen to you guys every morning, and Spadoni, it's great to hear your voice. But I wanted to say, here's to the underrated. I just go back. I listen to you every morning in the beginning, last year talking about Brock and whether or not he was going to make it, and then who's going to be our quarterback, and just all the doubters, all the people who wondered, could this guy do it? And I called in and talked about his level of composure, and it really stuck with me that this is a guy who has literally shown up. Can he play? Oh, he can play. So Look around and think about all of the athletes who were Steph Curry underrated. I think back to Tom Brady. Nobody thought that guy coming out of Michigan. The guy had so many doubters, and look at what his career has shown to be. So here's to the ones who not only play but stand up and do it well every week, and just take a bunch of grief from people who doubt whether or not they can do it.
The two front runners for the MVP Judy. Right now are a guy taken in the 4th round and a guy who's Mr. Irrelevant.
Mississippi State.
Like the greatest wide receiver of all time went to a college nobody knows the nickname to. The Mississippi Valley State team. Does anyone know? Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time, was the second choice for the Niners, not the first.
Well, hell,
the second
you can
choice.
go to him. You can go, maybe some say the second. Randy Moss, where'd he go? Marshall.
I know.
You can go to, Calvin Johnson. Yeah, the triple option.
Tech.
Georgia Tech?
I thought Dwyer was going to be a baller, the running back. I was so wrong.
Raiders should have taken him in hindsight, Jamarcus Russell.
But you know what? It's funny. Judy said something there, and this is why to me
Judy.
comp.
She had good energy.
You know what? Let's say it on the other side. I want to give you a comp. I'm going to redo the comp. It didn't land on Bonte's lap the way I wanted it to. Maybe I'll kick it to you, and you could chew on it a little. You could say, Joe, you're stupid. I don't know. But to me, it's like there's a level of elite player that I see in him in terms of mannerisms and characteristics, and I think that it's going to help him in the long run.